Hello, and welcome to the Mr. 50mm YouTube channel. I'm Mr. 50mm. I'm also late to the party. For this video, we're going to be looking at the FujiFilm GFX 50S, the original one from 2017. As you can see, this is the original one. It's a bit chunky. Now, why didn't I get the GFX 50S 2 or the R? Well, because they cost more money. And this video is not sponsored by Fujifilm or any other company. I bought it with my own bucks. Now, some of you may remember in the past I tried to buy a medium format digital back from MPB. It didn't go very well. And I had initially intended to use my money and, get that to review. But instead, we have this. And kind of happier for it, I think. It's a fairly modern camera after all. 2017. Pretty new for this channel. So yeah. For this video, get ready for my take on the GFX 50S. A little bit late. Let's get into it. First off, what is the Fujifilm GFX 50S? Well, it's this camera right here. The GFX 50S is the second ever medium format mirrorless camera, with the first one being the Hasselblad X1D50. C, I think. Anyways, this is the first made by Fujifilm, and it was released on the 28th of February in 2017. The camera uses Fujifilm's G-mount lens system. The sensor in it is 44mm by 33mm. That's about 1.7 times larger than 35mm cameras, with a crop factor relative to 35mm being roughly 0.79, meaning that 50mm lenses appear to be closer to 40mm in perspective. So it's a pretty chunky sensor. But that being said, a full frame medium format is actually considered, I think, 54mm by 40.4mm, just for reference. Now, the sensor in the GFX 50S packs 51.4 megapixels. That's a lot of pixels worth of resolution, with a normal ISO range of 100 to 12,800 and an extended range of 50 to 102,400 ISO when expanded. And this is, of course, with the electronic shutter turned off, so mechanical shutter only. You get the extended range. The camera can shoot at 3 FPS. Autofocus is done using contrast detect only, so it's accurate, not quick. Metering is done using a 256 zone system on the sensor, and the GFX 50S also features a 3.69 millidot swappable EVF. Watch this. It comes out, and you can swap it with an EVF that tilts up and down, or shoot without one. I like the EVF, so going back. Now, I don't have the flippy one, just the fixed one. So, we're going to be using that for this video. Now, the rear of the LCD is a 2.36 millidot display, and it does tilty kind of a flip, but it does touchy. Let me show you. So, here's the back. You got your tilts, right? But it can also do that. Kind of weird, but pretty cool. Now, the camera is also weather sealed, so pool parties all around for the GFX 50, with the right lens, of course. The camera uses a focal plane shutter, and it's good for 360 seconds to 1/4000th of a second in the mechanical mode. With the electronic one, though, you can go up to 1/16,000th of a second. That being said, you got to watch out for rolling shutter and all that good stuff. Flash sync is kind of slow, 1/125th of a second, and it packs the NPT 125 battery. Apparently good for 400 SEPA rated shots. Unfortunately, on the GFX 50S, we got no USB charging. That being said, the GFX 50S uses dual UHS 2 SD card slots for memory, so plenty of options for storage. So many cards. The camera also features Wi-Fi, and it does indeed shoot moving photos, or videos if you will, at a 1080 30p. That's it. The GFX 50S weighs in at roughly 920 grams with the EVF, or roughly 2 pounds, roughly 0.92 pleno. When introduced in 2017, this camera was actually introduced at the price of 6,500 USD. With modern inflation dollars, that is $8,315 in 2024 terrible dollars, or roughly 11,360 Canadian maple dollars. Using the Fujifilm GFX 50S, let's start with ergonomics. If you're coming from normal mirrorless systems like one of these, Micro Four Thirds EM5s, this is going to feel big. It's going to feel quite chunky. That being said, if you're coming from the land of the DSLR, this will probably feel actually very close to the same as a full-frame DSLR. Its weight is fairly similar, size is fairly similar, so it won't be a big change for you. Now, lastly, if you're coming from medium format film or medium format DSLRs, the GFX 50S will feel feather light. Overall, this camera body feels generally well balanced. The grip is really excellent. It'll be good for most hands, like small ones, pretty big ones, and hands that are like my hands. My hands fit really well. All my fingers are able to rest on it. Feels really comfy. Overall, it's good times. The control layout on the camera is what you'd expect for most Fujifilms. You got your ISO over there, shutter over here, and if you had a Fujifilm lens, aperture somewhere here. I don't got one, so it's not there. But it is what you expect from Fujifilm, so it's pretty great. Now, that being said, for those of you who are not familiar with this particular layout, you're kind of wondering, where's my PASM modes? Where's my program, my aperture, my shutter, manuals? Well, if you're looking at the camera, and you might have noticed, all of these dials here have your indicated ISOs and or speeds. You can drop it into the A. Drop it into the A, and you give it automatic control. You can kind of get your PASM modes that way. So they're still there, they're just not on a dial. Rather, it's how you set your camera. Reminiscent of, cameras of old. The only thing I do wish this camera had was an exposure comp dial. It's not too bad. It's like this guy, this little button there. Yes, that's one. And command dial. But, I do wish it was there. I get why it's not there. They needed room for this top display where it could have gone. But I do wish that it was still put somewhere. Maybe under this command dial. I don't know. Either way, it's not too bad. Hold button, move command dial. Anyways, with that being said, let's have a look at this top LCD. I'll pop the camera on and you can have a look. And let's get the display lit up. It's fairly chunky, and it's a full-on mini black and white display that lets you customize the things that it shows. When it's turned off, the camera is turned off, the camera sub display is actually always on. So you always get a little bit of information, battery levels, shot remaining on the card that you're shooting. I actually find the battery level indicator super useful. Now, turn to the back of the camera, and what you get is a fairly nice control layout. It makes a lot of sense, and it's fairly intuitive. You got your command dial up here, and they click. Now, you also have your command dial in front. It's quite nice. And you have the multi-direction thumb controller thing right where my index finger is. It is quite good for immediate AF selection. You also got your D-pad for your directional control through the menu, and the menu button on the center, as well as a few other custom buttons that you can customize throughout the camera. Now, key functions on the camera tend to be on the right side, as you'd kind of want them to be. And it's kind of nice because then you get to control most of the camera without having to lift your eyes from the EVF. Now, the only thing that you do really need to adjust on the left side, as I said, is your ISO dial right there, and you have your AF mode selection, which is up above the LCD here. It's kind of weird, but it's actually a pretty good spot. The only thing that's kind of odd is, you might have noticed here, that is a playback and a delete button there. They're right above the LCD on the right. It's a bit awkward to use if you're just trying to do it with your right thumb. It's kind of doable, but really, like, I can press the play button with my right thumb, but I can't press the delete with it unless I use my left hand to brace the camera and move my right hand over or something like this. It's not super great, but it's not too awkward. That being said, all this put together gets you an excellent shooting experience. The EVF is really great. It's not a million pixels, like, it's not your 10 million millidots like on newer Sonys, but it's big, it's bright, and it will do the job. One thing you will notice though with this particular EVF, more with the sensor than anything, is that the refresh rate isn't the highest. Sometimes when you're transitioning to areas zoomed in, when you want to really dark from really light areas, you might notice the frame rate drop. But it's not really too bad, especially if you remember EVFs of yesteryear, which were quite bad. The GFX 50S is a pretty modern camera, 2017 after all. As a result, ISO performance is awesome. At low noise, low ISO, noise is basically non-existent. Shooting at ISO 100 is basically like shooting or looking at a reflection over water. Smooth. Very good. High ISO at 12,800, noise is pretty well controlled, and while it's not like, you're not going to not notice that you're using it, it's not super intrusive. It's a very useful ISO to have available. Now, part of this is because the sensor resolution is pretty high, so if you needed to clean it up, you could just normalize and shrink the images to better suit your application, and you get less noise overall. Now, this is especially true if you're doing like web-sized images, like ISO 12,800. You're probably not going to notice on a HD or 4K display at all. So pretty good stuff. That being said, as always, modern noise reduction software also does a pretty good job of suppressing noise at the high ISOs on this camera. Now, I haven't used the expanded modes too much, and I alluded to it earlier, but in order to use your expanded modes, you have to disable the electronic shutter. And I normally have the camera set up so that it switches automatically from electronic to mechanical, so it automatically blocks out those higher ranges. But you can enable them by first switching it to mechanical shutter only, and then switching your camera to the ISO like C mode, and you can control it using a dial. So with that, you can then expand your ISO. That being said, I did turn it off to take some shots, and I do notice that even the ridiculous ISO numbers, your 50Ks, your 100Ks, in a pinch, they're gonna get you your photo, and especially if you're using it for like web use, whatever, scale that image down, you still got an image, right? It's not too bad. It's not pure potato. That being said, if you are using these, always got to be aware, dynamic range, going to drop a lot, and you're going to get a lot of pattern noise. But again, it's there if you need it. Now, for general image quality stuff, again, I'll always leave this up to the photo gallery to demonstrate the camera's abilities. But, you know, with 51 megapixels, this is the first camera that I've had that shoots like above 40. I have my Phase 1 P45 and that shoots at 40. Percentage is fairly large. But, you know, with 51, it's even bigger. So, yeah, you get a lot of cropping space. Now, I normally would compare this to like my regular full frame cameras, and it just feels like one. It's a lot smaller than my mediums. So I'm used to seeing your 24 megapixel cameras, and you know, the 51 megapixels. It's a lot of pixels. So it's just kind of crazy just how much cropping you can do. Now, I'll make a quick comment about the dynamic range. Again, I set this to automatic on the DR optimizer, and yeah, you get plenty of range on the camera. You can pull and play with sliders all day long, and generally, like only in the toughest scenarios are you gonna like totally lose or blow out stuff. But that's kind of expected for a modern camera, so yeah. Anyways, like I said, hopefully the photo gallery that I have set up will show you what it's like to use the camera. I kind of wanted to comment about focusing, but I'm probably not the best person for this. That being said, you know, most reviews comment that the 50 series AF, you know, it's accurate but slow due to the fact that it only has contract detect AF. I'm gonna probably agree with them, but I do also want to say that I don't currently use any actual GFX lenses for the system. So I ask that, you know, if you're really interested in AF performance, explore some other reviews, not mine. That being said, I will comment on one thing. You may have noticed on my GFX, there lives a Canon lens. So I'm currently using an EOS AF adapter, and I have some other manual focus adapters as well. My particular EF adapter is a no-name one. Apparently, it's, you know, it looks kind of like the Viltrox basic one, and it seems to work actually pretty all right. Focus works most of the time. It's a bit slow. Sometimes you got some weird hiccups with the camera, but I find that it works pretty well. Now, with the 40 millimeter lens on here, it's the, again, Canon 40 f2.8. It's like a very reliable lens on the GFX system, and it honestly, again, focuses fairly well. I wouldn't really try it on the continuous mode. Let's see. But, oh yeah, that is a lot of jumping around. You know, in single shot mode, perfectly usable. Now, with the continuous, with the continuous shooting, I'm gonna again come at this from three different angles. If you're coming from a modern mirrorless system, this is gonna feel slow. 3 FPS, not super fast. If you're coming from a DSLR, it's also gonna feel slow, but somehow more acceptable because, you know, with the DSLR, you got the flappy mirrors. Probably not used to super high numbers anyways. You know, you're getting like your 10s, your 12 FPSs with the latest cameras, and with older, slower ones, you're getting like 5. So if you're used to DSLRs, this will feel just like a DSLR of the older times. Now, that being said, if you're coming from medium format anything, this will feel like greased turbo lightning. It is just snappy and quick, like compared to my older phase digital back or Leaf Aptus digital backs. This is insanely quick. They take shots at like 0.8 FPS, and then you know, if you're ever try to do some image review, good luck. Hope you got a minute to let the image load up. But that being said, let's have a look and have a listen at the continuous shooting of the GFX 50S. All right. Not super fast, but you know, not bad. Again, considering the size of the sensor, it's pretty good. Now, before we move on, I do want to talk menus, the most exciting part of any camera review. I have never been a massive fan of Fuji menus. This is what it looks like. So if you're a Fuji user, you're probably very used to this. It's just not the menu that I like. Canon guy. What can you do? But there are some legitimate critiques here. There's a lot of menu diving for some things. So unless you know what you're looking for and where you're going to find it, you might actually get lost in it. For example, it took me a while to figure out how to get to EVF settings. You dive in, it's like 2 menus deep. You open the menu, you scroll down to your wrench. Let's have a look. Nope. There, you scroll your wrench. Then you go scroll to screen setup. Once you have that, the screen it's referring to is, it's both your screens, but you'll have menu options for EVF and rear screen. So, it's in a setting that, I don't know, I'm not a massive fan of the way it's organized, but overall, it works. Other weird things is that you can't navigate the menu with the touchscreen, but my Sony is like that. Some other cameras I have, like I think my Olympus EM5 Mark I, similar. For some reason, touchy touch is only reserved for autofocus. That being said, you can use the touchy touch for some things, like I said, autofocus. You can do your punch and zoom with it, and when you're on your Q menu with Fujifilm, you can manipulate things. That being said, for image review, I find that the touch is quite good. Basically reminds me of how you do it on an iPhone or an Android phone. So, good stuff. Alright, well, first off, this video from this point on is directly from the GFX 50S. You might have noticed a wardrobe change. That's because this is a different day. At any rate, I'm using the GFX 50S shooting at 1080p 30 frames, and I'm using the audio directly from the GFX, so there's not a microphone attached to it. And we're also using the Canon EF to G mount adapter. And you might notice that the autofocus is a bit juddery. It's going in and out. You might also hear it because we're using the STM lens, the 40mm, which is a pretty quiet lens, but not the quietest around. And you might have noticed that the autofocus performance is a bit janky. I don't know if it's not always keeping me in focus, and I can hear it right now, just going back and forth, but otherwise, it is autofocusing in movie mode. So that's nice. But yeah, let's have a look at the other clips that are around that I took just walking around with the GFX 50S. if you're interested in exploring many pixels and you want to explore adapting lenses to the camera body, I think the 50S is an excellent system. I'm having a ridiculous amount of fun playing with what lenses I can put on the GFX that'll cover the sensor. And, I'm enjoying just seeing how they perform, seeing the vignetting characteristics, and whether or not I can remove it in post or whether or not I can use the vignette to my advantage when framing up my shots. Overall, having a lot of fun just playing. Now, I also think that the GFX 50S is a great stepping stone into the world of bigger format sensors, and it won't break the bank generally. The older camera body that is this 50S does save you quite a bit of money compared to other cameras featuring the exact same Sony sensor, and it's overall a fairly nice package. That being said, if you are looking at a high-res camera and you're expecting, I want big resolution, I want the lightning fast AF, I want like 30 frames per second, and I want to buy all the f1.2 glass in the world, this is probably not a great fit. You're probably better off just sticking with a more conventional high-res mirrorless full-frame camera. Unfortunately, this video isn't as cut and dry as yes or no, unfortunately. To wrap it up, the GFX 50S. It's been an excellent camera for me. I really loved getting the benefits of a modern camera system with a bigger sensor on a mirrorless platform. And I enjoy the flexibility that it's offering and just the compactness of this whole setup. Now, I do want to say this is not going to replace my Phase 1 gear. I still really love the images that come out of my P45, out of my older Mamiya glass, and overall I love that system. But that being said, when I decide to go out for a photo walk, when I decide to just have a camera to carry, the GFX 50 will almost always make me think twice. Do I just want to take this, or do I want to take something else? And for the past little while, I've just picked this up. Out on a stroll, literally anywhere. This is now the camera that I grab. But let me know what you think of the 50S. Do you have one? Or did you upgrade to one of the newer ones, the S2, the R? Or maybe the 100 series? Or do you just not care for the GFX line or medium format cameras in general? And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.